All right, good evening, and thank you for attending our community briefing on this amazing Thursday and taking the time to visit us right before the debates. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, John Kabateck. He is Executive Director of NFIB. And for those of you that don't know what NFIB is, it is the National Federation of Independent Businesses. They are the national, and they have a California state version of their national, but they advocate on behalf of America's small and independent businesses and all of the 50 states. So we thought it'd be a good idea to have John come and talk with us, since our chamber doesn't do a lot of policy advocacy as a chamber, but we thought we would invite an expert to kind of go through the propositions that are going to be on our ballot for those of you that have not turned yours in yet. And I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. So take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everybody. This is so exciting. First of all, yes, my name is John Kabateck. I am the California State Director of the NFIB Small Business Group. We're the largest and leading small business organization in California and the nation. We work really well with chambers. We love working with chambers, which is why I'm so excited to learn about you all kicking this wonderful organization off and doing great things in your community. I also want to make sure, Elizabeth, that you know, and so many others know, that for, 30 years, I have lived in and around the Arden community, pretty much right off of Fulton Avenue near Morse and right near the Del Paso Country Club for many, many years. I'm now in East Sacramento, but I'm guessing if I were to go down the list as I was looking at all your organizations that you all represent, I've probably been a customer to pretty much all of you at some point. So I've been feeding your community. You've been keeping my family happy. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Love the Arden community. Thank you. Proud of the Arden community. So this was a nice invitation, Elizabeth. Thank you. Yes, so I know you all, it's the end of the day, and I don't want to ever get between people and their happy hour or their meals or family time. But I know everybody's probably at home these days, so you're getting a lot of family time, and I'm hoping you're all safe and healthy and happy right now. I know most importantly, these are very uncertain times for small businesses. NFIB represents about 15,000 small businesses in California, about 300,000 nationwide, a lot of them here in the Sacramento and Arden community. And very proudly represent. But I will tell you, it's nothing unlike what all of you are hearing and feeling out there right now, which is the word I keep hearing is uncertain. Uncertain and fearful of what's happening right now. You got everything from wildfires to certainly the pandemic, to certainly things such as the challenges of the civil unrest that we find that are affecting a lot of small businesses out there. So there's a lot of question marks with small business, and we love working with chambers, and I look forward, Elizabeth, to working closer with all of you. What I thought I'd do is NFIB, we every year, every election cycle, I should say, we make sure that we talk to our members. And one exciting thing about it is we ask our members specifically what positions, where they want us to be involved, both on stuff in the state capitol, but also on the political cycle, what they want us to do when it comes to candidates at the state and federal level. And so we go to our members, and they tell us what positions they want us to take, what they want us to get involved in. And so without further ado, I think I'm just going to hop right in, because I think a lot of you, with about a week and a half until Election Day, want to know kind of what are the ballot measures that affect me the most? Certainly, what are the things that affect small business the most, I should say. So we met with our PAC board, we met with our membership, and we put stuff out to our membership, and we came back with 5 measures that really, I think, are the fundamental ones that we are engaged in. And I would say, if you ever go to NFIB.com, and go to our California page, you'll be able to also see a lot more about this. But I was going to give you kind of the Reader's Digest version, a little bit of each of these measures that we are involved in. There's another one that we didn't take a position in, and I'll explain that, that I might just briefly touch upon, Elizabeth, if time's permitting. And I certainly welcome questions that you all would have as well. But I think first and foremost, the one thing I also wanted to mention is a lot of what was the undercurrent of taking positions on measures this year is obviously the pandemic, is obviously COVID and the uncertainty. And I think the thing we keep hearing from our members, of course, is we got to keep costs down. We got to stop regulations. We got to keep as few frivolous lawsuits so that our small businesses can crawl out of the hole they're in. We ran a survey about 3 weeks ago of our NFIB membership nationwide, and basically the results came back that said that if economic conditions don't improve markedly here in California and nationally over the next 4 to 5 months, 1 out of every 5 small business members, at least of ours, but I'm sure this is everyone, 1 out of every 5 small businesses will be forced to close their doors. So a lot of, I think, driving this year's positions on things are no different than years past, that they don't like higher taxes, they don't like lots of regulations, they want to have the ability to be successful. But the pandemic and COVID clearly are driving a lot of folks saying, look, you got to give us a chance to crawl out of the hole we're in right now. So I'm going to just put it in perspective and kind of go down the list. There are about 5 measures, and I think what I'm going to do, Elizabeth, if you'll indulge me, is kind of maybe bunch them together, a couple of them based on themes, a little bit of where we took positions. As you know, there are 12 measures that are on the state ballot. Hope many of you have gotten out to vote, or hopefully you have, and but hopefully this will help you if you haven't, and help you to share with others. But there are 12 measures on the state ballot. We did not take positions on all 12 ballot measures, of course, because not all of them necessarily directly affect small business. But I'm going to go down the list real quick of the 5 that we took positions on, and then I'd love to talk to all of you. The first one, first and foremost, and probably, I wouldn't say we pick favorites because there's a lot of issues with all of these 5, but I'd say the favorite one, or the one that's the most concerning to small business owners, is Proposition 15. And this is what's called that split roll property tax measure that's on the ballot. So first and foremost, I would tell you that Prop 15 is, without jumping, I'll just jump right into it and tell you Prop 15 will be, if passed, the largest property tax increase in California history, which will be about $11.5 billion with a B, $11.5 billion per year in property taxes. Our members, again, are uncertain. They're scared. They have been taxed to the hilt. California already has the highest statewide sales, income, gas, corporate taxes. So they look at property tax protections under Proposition 13 as one of the last bastions of hope for them. But Prop 15, if passed, would poke major holes through it. So to put things into perspective, and I won't bore you with a lot of background on Prop 13, all I will say is, for those of you who aren't too familiar with that measure, the property tax cap that voters approved overwhelmingly in 1978, Prop 13 was a result of home and property taxes going through the roof back in the late 70s. Families, seniors, small business owners were being forced out of their properties because they just couldn't afford to pay 50%, 100% tax increases in their property every year. It was impossible for people to predict their next property tax bill, so it left it impossible for families and small businesses to plan. And what this resulted in, good news was, this resulted in bipartisan support in the legislature at the time, and then bipartisan support from the voters, with nearly 2/3 of California voters passing Proposition 13 to cap property taxes for residential and business properties and provide some certainty for people who had no certainty. And what Prop 13 does, for those of you who don't know, is it specifically calculates property taxes for residential and business properties based on 1% of their purchasing price, and then it caps annual increases in property taxes at 2% per year, which prevents those sharp increases that people were seeing for so long. So Prop 13 provides certainty to all taxpayers who whether they buy or rent their real estate. I don't know about many of your businesses, but most of our small business owners rent their business. And for those who believe, the proponents of Proposition 15, basically what Prop 15 proponents want to do is take commercial and industrial property out of those Prop 13 protections and basically allow those property taxes to go up for property, business, and commercial property. And the proponents of Prop 15, what you'll hear quite a bit, is a few things. You're going to hear them say that property tax revenues have not been keeping up with the time. But according to the nonpartisan legislative analyst here in California, actually property tax revenues, quote, increased throughout the recession while other major revenue sources declined significantly. So that's a farce. But there's been a long push by Prop 15 by folks who don't feel it's ever enough to take money out of the pockets of small business, to split the roll, as I said, and basically require and force small businesses and commercial and industrial property to pay higher property taxes. But this couldn't come at a worse time in California history. And the good news is we're hearing this not from, this isn't a Republican or big business, small business, Democrat issue. We're hearing people from all sides of the aisle saying this is bogus and this is the worst possible time in California history to raise property taxes. So NFIB has joined a lot of folks, the Sacramento Metro Chamber. We have all kinds of folks out there, United Chambers of Action Network. We've got all kinds of folks out there, California Chamber, Business Roundtable, other groups, seniors, veterans, basically saying this is ridiculous and Prop 15 terrifies us. Real quick, without Prop 13's protections, small businesses are going to face huge rent increases at a time, frankly, when federal government and state governments are forcing businesses to close their door, but they're also trying to help find small businesses relief to keep them open. So you'll hear from Prop 15 proponents that don't worry, small businesses are not going to be affected here. They're exempt, because what they put in there is they basically put in something there that says something that Prop 15, the split roll business property tax increases will only affect those businesses that are valued at $3 million or more. But what they won't tell the voters, and what voters need to know, and you all can help get people to know, is most small business owners rent, and when they rent, they sign what's called a triple net lease, which is they're on the hook for any costs that are passed down from their landlords and from their owners in 3 areas: maintenance, insurance, and you guessed it, property taxes. So that is passed right on to the renter. And right now, Californians pay 3 times more to comply with taxes than larger businesses. And as I said, we have the highest taxes in the nation. Why on earth would we increase taxes by $11.5 billion a year on property? And make no mistake, the California Assessors Association opposes this. The assessors around the state have made it very clear that this will disproportionately harm businesses. Basically, they also said that it will actually end up costing about, and I think what we heard from folks is more than $1 billion per year, more than $1 billion over the course of a 3-year period for those who are hurting. So we are hearing from a lot of folks that this is going to be, assessors hate it. It'll hurt farmers because the farmer costs will go up and most food items will face higher property taxes. For those of you who are big believers in the renewable energy goals we have in California, which we have 100% renewable energy goal by 2045, it's going to devastate our incentive to build solar energy systems. It devastates local governments, as I said. It'll be about more than $1 billion in new administrative expenses over 3 years. I was just talking to the Chatsworth Chamber yesterday. Their LA County assessor said he's going to have to hire about 150 new assessors to do this, and it will take 5 years to implement. Ridiculous. So actually, and it lacks transparency. One of the things we've seen with the gas tax, one of the things we've seen with the other taxes in the past, no accountability where these dollars go when you're sending them to Sacramento. So there's just no confidence that and trust that $12 billion will be spent, not just responsibly, but even honestly. And it will decrease our housing support and drive up rents as home prices go up, and local governments are going to try and figure out how to make this work. And then last but not least, proponents will tell you that this is going to help education. Well, we have Prop 98, which dedicates it 40% of our state budget already goes to that. But the bottom line is voters in Los Angeles City last year were asked to support Measure EE, which was a parcel tax on businesses and residential. And they flatly rejected it. And they basically sounded off saying they didn't have any confidence that that money was going to go help paying our kids and our classrooms. So this isn't Republican or Democrat. We got Willie Brown, we got the NAACP, we got Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, most all of the major business groups and local chamber groups out there. We would love to have you on board if you haven't yet taken a position. But the last thing mom and pops need right now is, last thing I'll say on Prop 15, is the last thing small business owners need is to have that last bastion of hope, that last glimmer of hope in tax protections in a state where so many taxes are crushing mom and pops. And that is property tax protections just destroyed. Prop 15 will do that. So we hope that the Greater Arden Chamber would oppose, and the website, I can tell you if there is an interest in that, is noonprop15.org. Noonprop15.org. And there is a sign-up form, Elizabeth. If you all decide you want to do so, or if individuals want to, but that's a devastating measure, and we just hope that you will give careful thought to that. I'm going to lump in also the next one is Prop 21. We also, our NFIB group also opposes Prop 21, which is the rent control measure that continues to be pushed by a few out there that feel that our rent control system that we need to have more rent control from our governments having control over the building and development of our communities. Well, this is interesting in that we have everybody from business community, the ethnic chambers, social justice groups, and frankly, Governor Gavin Newsom opposing Prop 21 because they believe and know that this is going to make our economic crisis that much worse. The reason that Governor Newsom opposes it is, frankly, well, let me just put it into perspective and tell you there's a guy by the name of Michael Weinstein, who's an activist in Los Angeles, wealthy activist, and his multi-million-dollar special interest group has been backing continued efforts to push rent control on Californians. California, just so you know, with Governor Newsom and the business community and others coming together, just passed the toughest in the nation statewide tenant protection law that provides certainty on rent increases. It gives certainty on rent increases while ensuring affordable housing continues to be built in our state. But Michael Weinstein, this guy who continues to push rent control, basically they're pushing Proposition 21, which would undermine the new critically important law. And people are outraged about this, and they should be. Now, just to put it into perspective, these are the same pro-rent control activists that spent more than $25 million in 2018 to push Proposition 10 on rent control. They tried rent control in 2018, and 59% of California voters said no, don't be misled. It's more flawed, and I'll just quickly touch upon the flaws with rent control. First of all, this measure, Prop 21, it fails to provide immediate rent relief from the current economic crisis. So millions of Californians are out of work, there's no question, and they're struggling to pay rent. But what Prop 21 does is it does not give immediate relief to renters that face higher housing costs during this crisis. And it actually makes things worse for renters by encouraging landlords to evict their tenants so they can convert to rental units or condos. What rent control will do for those who own property is basically put the property owners, most of these are small business owners, in a very tough position. Many of them are going to convert their tenant-based properties to condos or townhomes. And we've heard that repeatedly from folks. It's also just going to discourage investment in California. This is at a time when we're trying to encourage construction, but it's going to discourage and actually decimate construction of new housing projects. We should be continuing to build new housing projects. I work with the Associated Builders and Contractors of Northern California as well, and we collaborate with them. This will worsen, they tell us this will worsen our crisis, and actually it'll stop them from wanting to build new properties and mean less supply to meet the growing demand in California. We should be doing the opposite, and we shouldn't be raising housing prices and making it harder for Californians to find affordable housing, but Prop 21 will do that. And then according to the latest figures by Governor Newsom and his administration, California is facing close to $55 billion deficit over the next year, and they're going to have to making cuts. But what Prop 21 with rent control will do is it's actually going to create, listen to this, I think 539 local rent control agencies that will now be dictating housing in California. So basically there will be as many as 539 rental boards across the state in charge of rental housing, and bureaucrats deciding what people can or cannot do with their properties. But in addition to that, it's going to add tens of millions of dollars in new costs to local government to deal with this and increase pressure to raise taxes. The nonpartisan legislative analysts, as I say again, they said Prop 21, and I will say, will increase costs to local governments by tens of millions of dollars a year and cost the state millions more in lost revenue. And basically that's going to divert funds from these social safety net programs to have to deal with this. So, and it's also going to, make no mistake, it will pressure local governments to raise taxes even higher. So Prop 21, rent control, there has been an attempt before. The governor came together in good faith with the business community and others. They did achieve a statewide tenant protection law that actually helps to encourage housing, affordable housing, and more ability to have developments and make sure people are keeping their costs down. Prop 21 would completely reverse it, which is why the governor and so many others are strenuously opposing this. Realtors Association, the Business Roundtable, but not just business groups. This is one that you got a lot of folks on all sides saying this is going to put people out on the streets. It's ridiculous. And as voters flatly on nearly 60% rejected in 2018, we're confident that's going to happen this year. So, and for that website, I'll just kind of do these as I go through them, Elizabeth, if that's okay. That website, if you want to find out more about No on 21, is www.noonprop21.org. noonprop21.org. I'm going to bunch the next two together because they have to do with retail theft. And Elizabeth, tell me if I'm doing okay on time. I don't want to. I'll keep a good clip here, but I hope I'm keeping a good clip.
Yeah. No.
Okay, good. A little sips in between. I promise it's water, not vodka. I promise. Anyway. Retail theft, there's a couple measures that have to do with crime. And the reason NFIB's members and our leadership decided to get involved in these is because we are seeing our small business owners, especially these days, are seeing a huge spike in crime. Not just shoplifting, but real problems in terms of looting, vandalism. I mean, gosh, I learned that I got an email from the landlord of my building downtown that said, stay away from downtown today because there could be some demonstrations, which is great, but you never know if those are going to get crazy. And at the end of the day, what we're finding from small business owners is their businesses are being, there's a lot of theft going on, a lot of damage, a lot of vandalism, a lot of crimes against their employees and customers as they try to walk to and from their cars. So small business crimes have been a major concern. I'll just be real quick. There's two measures, Proposition 20, which is championed by Sacramento's own Jim Cooper, Assemblyman Jim Cooper, who many of you may know. But also we are supportive of Prop 20, which will strengthen California's criminal justice laws, which have gotten weak over the years. And then we are opposing Prop 25, which will completely eliminate and devastate and decimate our bail system as we know it. I just want to talk about both of them real quick because they're kind of linked together, I think. I want to kind of frame it by saying right now, just shoplifting and stealing in California are becoming a bigger problem, as I said. And a survey, first of all, a survey by the National Retailers Association said that retail theft is at an all-time high, costing businesses nearly 2% of their annual profits. Law enforcement in California here and small business owners point quite often to the increase in shoplifting in what voters passed in 2014, which was Proposition 47. What Prop 47 did, I'll tell you, it raised the dollar threshold for misdemeanors, misdemeanor theft from $450 to $950. So it basically, when a misdemeanor was qualified as $450 or more, it raised it to $950, which basically gave a lot of criminals a heyday to basically go in and steal that up to $950. And that was, by the way, per incident with no ability to aggregate the crimes. So they could do it in one store and go to the other and it would not be aggregated. So because of this problem, major problems with Prop 47, even folks who were involved in supporting Prop 47 realized that there were a lot of problems with it. Because of this change, there's been a huge upsurge in retail theft. And as a result, an increasing challenge for police, prosecutors, just officials locally to deal with the problem. The FBI reports, and get this surprised me even as I was doing my research when we started getting involved, 49 California cities saw increases in property crimes. Larger retailers like Target have said that shoplifting has increased by 15% in California because of Prop 47. In a number of the larger retail stores, there's been a big, you've probably seen it. I go to CVS and grab some things and I noticed that the store staffers have had to lock things up because they point to the fact that crimes in stores. But imagine small businesses. Small businesses don't usually have the security guards, the security cameras that the big box stores do. I think it's a problem for any level of business, but poor small businesses are dealing with a lot of problems What Prop 20 would do is it would allow the third conviction. I talked about that $950 threshold. Well, it would allow the third conviction of petty theft in a store to be charged as what we call a wobbler, which is either a misdemeanor or felony, depending on the circumstances. So we think that would specifically discourage shoplifting. So at the end of the day, to kind of put that into perspective, it would basically, it would result in theft has gone up, as I said, by 30%. But under Prop 20, after a person is convicted 2 times of stealing property that's over $950, on their third conviction of stealing property that's over $250, the district attorney and the prosecutor has the option of charging them with a felony or a misdemeanor, depending on what went on. But it does allow for some measure of sanity as it relates to what Prop 47 did, which was give a heyday, a field day to organized thieves and retail theft. The other thing that Prop 20 would do, which is a good thing, is it expands the list of violent crimes in our state. For which early release is not an option. Just so you understand, right now, under current law, such offenses are not considered violent felonies. And that would include, surprisingly, rape of an unconscious person, felony domestic violence, sex trafficking of children, and hate crimes. Those are not considered, by the way, these days, Elizabeth and all of you, those are not considered, surprisingly, violent felonies. So Prop 20 makes sure that criminals that create genuinely violent crimes don't get a pass or get out of jail early. So in addition to that, it would actually do a good thing, which is reinstate the collection of DNA for certain crimes. I think there are a number of opportunities for DNA to be collected earlier so that they can be used from theft or drug crimes to help solve other violent crimes. Most studies have shown that drug crimes and theft often have led to rape and murder and other more violent crimes. So it would allow our officials to actually do DNA testing earlier, which has proven to help actually catch the bad guys and gals out there who have created problems. And then finally, it would create a more sensible parole process. So the bottom line is Prop 20 basically will strengthen in smart ways and responsible ways our criminal justice laws that had got significantly weak and didn't just result in retail crimes going up for small businesses, but actually have given those who are rapists and violent offenders and hate criminals and others too much of a pass. And we think it's smart. Jim Cooper has been championing this, but we have a whole slew of people who believe this is the right thing to do. And we would hope that you would support that. That actually, for that website, for Prop 20, which is yes on Prop 20, the website is Keep Cal Safe. Keep Cal Safe. It's known as the Keep California Safe Initiative, but it's keepcalsafe.org. One that's tied to that that I wanted to talk to you briefly about is Proposition 25. Now, Prop 25 is a real problem. Prop 20 is a good thing because it actually will make sure that our streets are safe, our small businesses are safe once again, safer. But Prop 25 really is one of those that I think symbiotically needs to also be just like rejected, because the two of them are not mutually exclusive. To give you some perspective on Prop 25, in 2018, Sacramento politicians and Governor Brown eliminated the bail system with a law that basically said we're going to get rid of the bail system. With the idea behind it was the rich are getting out sooner, they'll be able to afford it, and actually those who are the poor and ethnic communities are staying behind bars longer. Again, we have the NAACP and many other Latino groups and other folks on social justice groups saying that's a complete farce the way it's designed. But what the law did is it basically didn't only eliminate the bail system, but it replaced the bail system with a system of profiling based on biased computer formulas or algorithms to decide who would stay in jail and who doesn't. The proponents claimed it would basically, like I said, give disadvantaged defendants a more level playing field. But it actually, as I'll explain, just does the exact opposite, and it actually makes our communities more dangerous. And if Prop 20 isn't approved, it's really going to be a problem. So, and it'll also cost our communities hundreds of millions of dollars. So, Prop 25, by eliminating the bail system and replacing it with this profiling arbitrary computer system, there's a number of things that it would do. Number one, it's terrible for communities of color and the poor. Our justice system, frankly, California's constitution guarantees people the right to choose bail. So this immediately removes a constitutional right. But it basically, what our justice system guarantees people who are accused of a crime the right to have their day in court, to choose bail. Prop 25 would completely eliminate that. The right to choose bail would actually be replaced by a system of profiling, as I said, by a very complicated computer-generated formulas. The NAACP, just so you know, Alice Huffman and others with the NAACP and other ethnic-related social justice groups have come out saying that this would be a disaster because it actually creates more biased outcomes for communities of color and the poor. To give you an example, the questions that would be involved in this computer-generated algorithm are for the defendants: what neighborhood did you live in? What was your last bit of education? Where did you last work? And other very discriminating ways of trying to profile somebody. So it's just a disaster. I think there's ways to fix the bail system, but to completely eliminate it and eliminate 3,000 bail agents and more than 7,500 jobs is a real problem. The other problem is actually with bail agents eliminated, it actually is going to ensure that defendants have no accountability to show up for their day in court. California, you may or may not remember when the COVID crisis first started, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court experimented with a similar zero bail process during the coronavirus pandemic, only to reel back and realize people were reoffending the same day, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 times, and being rearrested the same day. By the way, New York did this last year, and in January, they launched it of this past year, they launched it, only to see their crimes spike by about 39%. So as a result, the legislature and Governor Cuomo decided to rescind their zero bail, similar eliminating bail. I can guarantee you if Prop 25 goes forward, this will absolutely give criminals even more of a pass. And if we don't strengthen, like I said, things through Prop 20, it's just going to be even worse. So it's going to be bad for public safety. Our Chief Justice of our Supreme Court and the New York governor and legislature realized this was a disaster and decided to reverse course. Let's not have to make that decision too late. Prop 25 also, as the nonpartisan legislative analyst noted, will cost local communities, our local governments, hundreds of millions of dollars annually, and it will reduce our state tax revenue by $21 million per year. Like I said, last time I checked, we are in about a $55 billion hole right now. The last thing we need to do is make things that much more difficult for our locals. And why do we want to dig ourselves deeper? And then finally, as I said, it puts 3,000 small business bail agencies and about 7,500 men and women out of jobs and in the unemployment line. We need to open doors for small businesses. Let's fix the certain ways that maybe the bail system isn't working, but let's not do something that's going to result in keeping the very people they want to get out sooner behind bars, which is what the way this profiling would do. Have no accountability for those who should show up back in court, put the costs on the counties in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year, and at the end of the day, put a lot of people who are working to do the right thing and not have to put it on the backs of sheriffs to help bring these people back. I did talk to the undersheriff of Los Angeles County, and he said in Los Angeles County alone, we have about 1.5 million failure to appears, people who have not shown up back in court. He said if this continues to go through, he said that'll just double or triple. There's no question. So that we recommend. NFIB is taking a position of no on Prop 25. And that website, if you want, is stopprop25.com. Stopprop25.com. And just to be clear, the way the vote is, because it's a referendum, the bail industry put this on the ballot. A no vote means that people would reject it. So a no vote of Prop 25 means that you're rejecting eliminating the bail system. A yes vote means that you're going to just be good with continuing things the way they are and as the law was written. And then, so the final one I want to just briefly talk about that we're taking a position on. So I talked about a couple so far. I know it's a lot to take in. Yes, no on Prop 15, the split roll property tax, big problem. no on Prop 21, which is the rent control, which will just give our governments huge sweeping authority and cost and just discourage housing, put more people out on the street, and raise taxes on Californians. On the criminal justice one, as I said, just as a recap, Proposition 20 will strengthen our criminal justice laws. It will make sure retail theft is not, that there's more safeguards against retail theft and community crimes by strengthening the right laws, putting the right kinds of things on a list that make sure that people are held accountable. And then Prop 25, which would eliminate our bail system and replace it with a very arbitrary computer system and have no accountability for criminals to come back, is a bad law. No on 25. And so the final one that I wanted to talk about that NFIB has taken a position on is Prop 24, and that has to do with consumer data. Many of you may be familiar with this original Consumer Privacy Act, and many of your retail and restaurant businesses may already be trying to comply with it, which just went into effect in July, about 3 months ago. What I will tell you is, I hear from our small business owners, I hear from family members of mine, nobody wants their data getting into the wrong hands. This big push in recent years has been, there had been some legitimate breaches in some of the larger businesses with consumer information and data, but I think the pushback on this from one guy who's a developer in San Francisco, nice guy named Alistair McTaggart, but just misled here, is that there are so many sweeping regulations associated with these consumer privacy laws that I don't think even he realized that it was going to sweep so many small to medium businesses in with the bathwater here. So I will just give you kind of a quick primer on it to let you know that Governor Brown and the legislature a couple of years ago passed the California Consumer Privacy Act. And what that did was it basically imposed some very sweeping privacy laws on small businesses. What it did was it created a significant. It required a lot of small businesses to stop in their tracks, allow a customer to come in and say, look, I demand in real time that you provide me all of the data of mine, consumer data, any transactions, any information about me. You need to store that, delete it, or hand it over to me, or you're going to have to pay a serious price through a lawsuit. I don't think that the author of the California Consumer Privacy Act realized how sweeping it was and the problems that were associated with it, but it really did establish a huge new sweeping privacy act that businesses are trying to comply with. And the cost of the original law, CCPA, we're already finding. The Attorney General, Javier Becerra, did a study on it and found that for businesses to comply, the California business community per year is going to be spending about $55 billion. Yes, that's with a B. $55 billion a year to comply, and they even drilled it down to say the average small business will be paying about $50,000 a year to comply in terms of new technologies. If somebody comes into your retail store or your restaurant, if you fall under these guidelines of the CCPA, basically you're going to have to either hire an accountant, an attorney, or both to try and get that data gathered and provide it to just one consumer or suffer a lawsuit. But how in this economy are people supposed to do that? But we're trying to, just as we're still trying to get fixes to the California Consumer Privacy Act, that just didn't seem to be enough for Mr. McTaggart. And he felt that there was an opportunity here to try and push for another one that would even be more sweeping. So Proposition 24 would actually make bad matters terribly worse by expanding and extending the requiring business owners to basically fully revise their privacy programs and add even more unforeseen costs. What will it do? It will, frankly, I'll give you a few things on Prop 24. It will impose additional economic uncertainty for businesses. Basically, it will establish, number one, it will establish a new enforcement department. And that may sound good and well, but we already have departments and agencies that are designed to enforce consumer protections. Proponents have claimed that basically $10 million a year may not be significant, but business owners and taxpayers are going to be asked to finance a $10 million a year new consumer department and enforcement department, all when businesses and social justice programs and safety net programs are suffering. And then basically in the middle of this crisis, it's basically there are cuts being made. That's ridiculous. But in addition to that, there's going to be a whole new slew of requirements for businesses. It's going to allow customers to prevent businesses from, it's going to force them to even do more to extend and clarify and quantify what they need to do. And then it basically also adds even more economic uncertainty through the California Consumer Privacy Act by creating, it's going to basically extend more of that. And actually, this is the part that we had a problem with. It limits the legislature's ability to make amendments to the law, even when problems become apparent. So even if the legislature says, okay, we have problems and issues here with this law, it would limit the governor and the legislature from doing it, and they would have to, again, take it all back out to the people, or completely limit that. So we have a real problem that, we can't get real fixes in real time. And if we've learned anything from the California Consumer Privacy Act episode, it's that these laws require a lot of thought, and to tie the hands of the legislature and the governor if they need to make real changes that are hurting businesses is ridiculous. So make no mistake, we believe in privacy laws that make sense, but these are so sweeping to force a business owner, like, you got a florist on Fulton Avenue or somebody who might have a little restaurant. It's going to limit their rewards programs. It's going to force them to stop everything, hire somebody to do it, and pay at cost, significant costs. Like I said, the average small business is going to pay about $50,000 just to comply with the last privacy law. That one actually hasn't even taken full effect yet, and yet they want voters in a couple weeks to vote on another one. Too much, too fast, too soon. Let's talk about privacy responsibly. I even told Alistair McTaggart we'd be happy to have that conversation after the election. But to do this all so quickly is just going to devastate people. So we just think small businesses deserve more care here and attention. Nobody wants it to get in the wrong hands, but Prop 24 is a disaster. And actually, the funny thing is, we're hearing that everybody's found something to hate in Prop 24. Some of the more extremist consumer groups feel that it doesn't go far enough. So there have been folks, Elizabeth, on the other side who have been taking out ads pretty aggressively saying, stop Prop 24. I think what that tells us is, let's get a discussion. Let's get together with the Consumer Federation of California and the business communities and the Business Roundtable and NFIB and others. Let's talk about privacy laws, but let's not do what politicians in Sacramento do so often, is throw something out there and try and see if it sticks. And at the end of the day, be sorry about that. So that website just is no-on24ca, like California, no-on24ca.org. But those are the 5 that NFIB has taken a position on. Elizabeth, if you want me to take 2 minutes, I could just linger and just say something about that Prop 22, but I'm happy to stop. We have not taken a position on the Uber measure, but I'm happy to mention a couple sentences about it if you want. But if I've talked too much, I'm happy to take questions.
I think that you are speaking to a chamber that does have some independent contractors, and I know that there is some confusion on if this is a carve out. Prop 22 is a carve out just for third party delivery and drivers. Maybe you could just expand on how that carve out really, does it affect the independent contractors or all of them, or just this sector?
Yeah, so it really does focus on the app-based driver community. And I would say this, let me first and foremost say that I think we had a big discussion with our leadership in NFIB. Frankly, we've had a few NFIB members say, why aren't you guys involved in this and supporting it? Make no mistake, we did not like AB5. I think most folks didn't like AB5. In fact, I'd tell you, if Lorena Gonzalez herself, who authored it, probably grunts about certain parts of it that she regrets doing. Just like Alistair McTaggart with the regrets he has, the buyer's remorse with Prop 24. But she's fighting this tooth and nail. The bottom line is this. NFIB, when we spoke to our members, we represent, certainly, of course, we represent independent contractors, we represent app-based drivers, but we also represent small businesses of every stripe, florists, musicians, folks who are consultants, And what we have felt from the very beginning was, short of completely eliminating AB5 and starting over, which we believe is the right approach, that it didn't make sense to, and it wouldn't be the right approach for our organization to pick winners and losers, to bring certain ones out of the cold under the tent and leave other ones there. So we've been fighting for things like, and I just say this before I talk about 22 real quick, we've been fighting for things like more aggressive business to business exemptions for businesses, more specific ones that affect all small businesses that would give them relief and help. And we've been actually having talks with Republicans and Democrats, and we still are not giving up on that. But I'll tell you about Prop 22. Basically, we have found that is focusing on the independent contractor law would allow more independent contractor ability and flexibility for those who are in the gig driving community. And I actually personally, I've said from the start, God bless them. I think, if they can get that to pass, that's a big step in the direction for many, many Californians out there, many of whom are NFIB members. But, I will say this, Sacramento politicians passed this drastic new AB5 that totally threatens to make it illegal for app-based drivers to choose independent work. And it threatens hundreds of thousands of jobs in the app-based driver community. And I love the app-based community, and I see people who have gotten jobs. I love being transporter. We all know people who have really, especially in this economy, are finding that as a resort to give them an income and put food on the table. But AB5 would completely threaten that. So what Prop 22 is, that basically the gig community, the Ubers and the Lyfts and the app-based driver community came together and said, let's find a solution that helps here. Because they basically did some polling and found that by a 4-to-1 margin, independent surveys have shown that these app-based drivers absolutely prefer to be independent. In fact, what I hear from folks is it's not government's job to tell me if I should be an independent contractor or not. I like it. I like being the single mom or the retiree or the student that has that flexibility, and especially now can put food on the table and earn an income. They basically, it prohibits independent contract work and would eliminate, we found, hundreds of thousands of jobs in the gig driving community. There will be longer wait times, higher prices, permanent shutdown of a lot of services. And then we do think about that ripple effect. You think about the restaurants and the retail stores that are very much reliant on that gig driving community. But here's what Prop 22 does real quick, and then I'll shut up, and I'm totally open for questions. Real quick. It will protect the ability of app-based drivers to choose work as independent contractors and have control over when, how, where, and who they work for, which is, ability to give them freedom when they're struggling to pay their bills. It'll save jobs. It'll improve the quality of the app-based work it'll actually require the app-based platforms, the Ubers, the Lyfts, and others, to provide drivers the following: guaranteed hourly earnings and per mile compensation for their expenses. Funding for new health benefits for drivers. And I know we hear from folks that they would like more of that ability, who work more than 15 hours of work. There should be that in there. Medical and disability coverage and injuries, for injuries and illnesses that happen on the job. And then protections against discrimination and sexual harassment. So the community realized, look, we weren't perfect. We could do some things here as we are an evolving gig economy that could make things work better, and they did. But then it also implements new background checks for drivers, mandatory safety courses, zero tolerance for drug or alcohol use offenses. So it makes it safer to be a customer in those cars. And then it keeps the app-based services affordable. If this doesn't happen, you're gonna be seeing huge costs going up on so many different levels. So we think that, I personally think there's a lot of merit to what's being done. We just would love to personally see a Prop 22 that would help all small business owners out there, not take certain ones and put them out of the tent and bring some others into the tent. But for those who are supporting Prop 22, and it's my unofficial comment, God bless them and we understand the onus of what they're trying to do. We just would like to see all. So I can't sit here as an NFIB director and say, vote yes on Prop 22. I can tell you that we understand the merits of it, and we certainly just want to see solutions to AB5 that won't just help the gig drivers only, but perhaps this vote will send a message that we can do more for so many more. So I know I'm spent a lot of time talking. I know I probably need a little methadone or something at this point. Or maybe I'll just start with a martini later. But I am totally open, and I know I've eaten up a lot of your hour here, but I'm very happy to answer questions. If I don't have the answers, I'll get you connected. But those websites I gave you, and I'll send them to you, Elizabeth, will help you so you can really, your members, your great members can really have better access and decide how to vote.
Yeah, and we had hopefully one of our directors who, you know, John Hoffman, was adding some of those links onto the chat. So
Yeah.
one thing I do want to comment is in some of the stuff that I've heard about the CCPA issue is I've already had some of the businesses that I'm in contact with telling me they have reached out to attorneys to even comply with the original CCPA that started January 1st, and you're talking about in the tens of thousands to be able to comply with that, and that's not even adding on this additional restriction. So I just want to put that out there. This is directly impacting our businesses, big and small, and it really doesn't matter because then it trickles down to the rest of us. One question that I heard about Prop 15, and one of the questions that I've seen as well, they're designating it, or they're calling it something in the way of school funding. But can you clarify if it's actually written into the proposition? I heard that this is going to go into the general fund, and so there wouldn't be any way to make sure that money was going to what they're saying. Have you heard that?
Yeah, my understanding is that actually it would, I mean, basically it would allow for that money to be spent at discretion, have their own way about spending it. It would not be, there would be so much freedom for politicians to spend it the way that they want to spend it. And that's what's got a lot of people on edge right now. I think right now people are just really worried that, like, look, I'm trying, I don't have any faith that the money we have sent to Sacramento with our gas taxes, which we opposed we were very supportive of Prop 6 because we thought that was a good step in the direction of helping. But as we see it right now, there is nothing that would safeguard those folks from being able to spend that money however they wish. And but they, again, couch it as we're going to try and help our schools and put our schools and our communities first. Don't buy. We're telling people don't buy it. It's not going to happen. In Prop 15, what it will do is it will impose its worth property more than $3 million, as I said, and the goal is to generate between $7 billion and $12 billion a year for schools and local governments. But it does not give any safeguards in terms of where that money can go. And I think what they have said is after backfilling the state income tax losses related to the measure and paying county administrative costs, the remaining monies would be allocated to schools. They claim 40% and other local governments 60%. But interestingly enough, they claim that the other money would go, 60% would go to local governments. If it was so wonderful in the eyes of local governments, many of these council members and supervisors who actually work with small businesses or have had small businesses, the rural county representatives of California went neutral. The California State Association of Counties went neutral. The League of California Cities, which we presented to, went neutral because we had so many people there. Some people who say, yeah, that money would really help us. But we had just as many in there saying, you know what, you take that money out of small businesses who are the drivers of our public services, you're going to dry up our public services. So they don't understand the economics. That's you all, small business owners, are the ones who make it possible for potholes and schools and hospitals to be, and unions even, to have the money that they receive out there from all of your businesses. But by raising these taxes, you're basically drying people who don't have money right now. There's no money, so these businesses will shut down, and there'll be even less.
And the threshold, I think, which is interesting, that $3 million, what they say is that's where they're going to start. If you have a property that's worth $3 million or more, right?
Correct.
But I think also in this new proposition, I think inside there it says that it's not just the building, it's not the structure, which I guess, for someone like me, $3 million sounds like a lot, right? When you're talking about a structure in California, that's really even small business commercial spots. It's not even what we might think is a big bill. Oh, that's a huge, no, that in California, the price of real estate alone is so high. But I understood also that in the bill, it does apply to all of the structure as internal stuff. So it's not just the building, but it's what's inside it as well. That's my understanding. Do you know if that, to clarify on that, if that is accurate, or is it actually the real estate of the building?
Yeah, so it increased. So basically, that is a good question, and I think the way it works is it is lifting the property tax caps, but it basically does apply to property within the business. So yes, it is those kinds of the hardware property that's within the actual business is as lumped in there as well. They claim that it exempts small businesses from personal property tax and $500,000 of personal property. But make no mistake, all costs are going to go up here. Again, the rents are going to go up because the owners of these buildings are going to have no choice but to pass it on. And the one thing I would mention, if you don't mind me hopping to the rent control item, is that, it's kind of a backwards thinking as well there, because I think there's a feeling that these property. I will say that I think it would be really worthwhile after this to have a better discussion about tenant-landlord relationships. Mm-hmm. I think the governor and others did come together, much as we have had a lot of concerns about a lot of the things the governor's done, no question, and that's an understatement. He came together in good faith to talk about rent control and tenants and landlords, and we got to have a system here. They did it, but it just never seems to be enough for the rent controllers. And the backwards thinking is you're going to start to tell a property owner who has a tenant-based location that if they have costs or abatements or management fixes or maintenance fixes that they have to pocket that, they're just going to say, no, I'm going to just convert it to something else. If I'm on the hook for that and I can't find any other means, those are my customers. Again, it's our California makes things so difficult. They have no choice but to raise the prices, but they don't want to. But if they can't make that adjustment, then you're just going to it's going to be a big disadvantage for building, investment, and people will just shut down.
Yeah.
So it's a backwards thinking, and that's, I guess, the only thing I would leave all of you with is there's some of you out there. I can tell I can see you through there. There's some of you who have signed the front of a check. Know what it's like. We need more of you in that Capitol down the street. So if you're even having a glimmer of a thought, to run for office, I know Sue Frost on the county supervisor. She and her husband Jack, you may know him. Mm-hmm. She's worked with him on small business stuff. You got Susan Peters. You got others, in the building who have, been small business owners. But one thing, Elizabeth, I would ask all of you is start thinking about those who might run for some of you are already on school boards and things. Start small, but we could sure use more of you in the building.
I like that. Thank you.
We need you. And vote those kinds of people this election because those are the ones who do understand the economics of a property tax increase or rent control or a privacy act, because you all walk the walk.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Well, that was all the questions that we were getting. I just want to remind everybody that's watching into this group, this will be on our YouTube, and we'll add it on Facebook. So anybody that possibly missed this tonight will have an opportunity. So, John, if I get any more questions, you'll be my speed dial, right? So. Thank you so much for all of your information. I think this was an essential discussion, and I really appreciate your time. So thanks, John.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you for putting up with me for an hour. I hope it was instructive. I can tell you that, if you don't have the kind of cash right now in this economy to go buy Benadryl or NyQuil PM, you just listen to my presentation and you'll be like this within 20 minutes, I'm sure. But I hope not. I hope it helps you. And Elizabeth, I'll send you the links for sure, because in these final days, the most important thing you all can do is get out and vote. And I think my bottom line is hold these measures accountable, but hold your elected officials and candidates accountable to the question of is what you're doing and is what this is doing going to help keep Main Street moving forward and get us out of the hole we're in and stop us from being scared and uncertain. That's what everybody should be asking right now.
Yeah.
So I wish you all well, and I wish you great health, and I thank you all, and gonna go back and feed the art and economy this weekend.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll be all over it. Fulton, Watt, Howe, Arden, I'm all over it.
Awesome.
Marconi. So thank you all, and keep doing great stuff.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.